I'm a supervisor.
I could play tic-tac-toe on the back there.
I'm a supervisor.
When the student becomes the teacher.
I'm a supervisor. I don't do my own work anymore. What's he doing? I don't know. He's already.
I'm a supervisor. Wait, what the hell's he doing?
Yeah.
That's our supervisor.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Not gonna do it ourselves. But we will tell you how you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Had like paddle stuff smash, people yelling in the background. Chris calling going good.
Yeah. Stop. You're not allowed on the railroad. You want to see what an FRA defect looks like? That is one. It's gonna be fixed. Alright, so what we're doing is marking ties for Corey. So how we do this is Corey will come out and mark a tie, like he's got some marked right here. And then I'll come out with him or opposed to him or anything, and I'll check it out and I'll mark the tie. So the ties that got 2 dots on them, they pull. And the ties that only got 1 dot on them, they leave them behind until the next go around. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to build the railroad up to where it's a good solid class 2, because these things almost always hinge around Christmas. And for Christmas, they're not this year, not next year, but 2 to 3 years from now, we will probably need to be able to book across the railroad at about 25 miles an hour to make the Christmas schedule work. So every year we go through and do a big tie project. And this year we're allocating about 1,500 ties between Mineral and Elbe. It's really not that much. It's about 231 ties a mile. Some parts of the railroad need it worse than others. So what I'm doing is I'm gonna come down. He stopped right up here at 75 ties in this mile. So I got my clicker set to where it's already at 75 ties. We're gonna go to the next mile marker and mark out up to 231. If I don't burn up that whole 231, then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna carry the leftovers over to the next mile. And if I don't burn up 231 ties in that mile, then how many ties I can burn off gets bigger. And then somewhere on this railroad, I could put 400 or 500 ties in a mile and bring it right up to good class condition. So the FRA says that for class 1 track, tangent track and curved track less than or equal to 2 degrees, you have to have 5 ties for every 39 feet. 6 ties in the turnouts and curves greater than 2 degrees. Class 2 is 8. So when you come down through here, most of these sticks of rail are about 35 to 39 feet long. So you kind of look at that, you sit back and go, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I got 5. Move on. However, like all things with the regulation, class 1 is absolute minimum, and that's half of a step above condemning. So if you're running just to class 1 and you're running tonnage and you're running regular trains, you're going to start having problems in the future because your track really isn't in that good a shape. So that's why we are trying to build to a good class 2 condition, and then we'll inspect for class 1 defects, and in the future, you know, probably within about 10 years, we'll be at a class 3 condition. The only difference between class 3 and class 2 is that you have more ties in the curves, so that you can go through the curves a lot faster. So for class 1 track, passenger trains can only go 15 miles an hour, freight can go 10. For class 2, max speed for passenger is 30, freight's 25. And then when you get to class 3, you can do like 40, 50 miles an hour. It's wild. So that's what we're doing right now. I'm out in front of Corey. They're getting ready to come down and start right up here. I'm gonna get the paint stick out and I'm gonna start marking ties for them to take out, keep count of it, and then when we get down to the Nisqually River Trestle, we'll call it a day doing that, and they'll keep changing ties behind us. So they can do about 80 ties in a day, the way they're set up right now. And they got a full crew today, so yay. So what we're looking for is defects in the ties, defect in the rail. You can't, like how this tie has got a bunch of splits in it. That's not good. But this is a really good tie here, and this is a really good tie here. So if you count that out, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Generally, class 1, you say every 5th tie. So that's above class 1. If we were to put a dot on that, and then a dot on that one down there that's got a dot on it, this chunk of the railroad would be way above class 1. And the other thing is too, is we got to think about where we're at. We're in the S curves right now. So we got a 23-degree curve right there where the Yukon's sitting, and then it turns around and turns into a 28-degree curve right there. So there's a lot of lateral force going on in this part of the railroad. Plus the train's coming up a 3% grade right here. So when we're marking these, especially in this area, we got to be thinking about the stresses and the forces that the train's going to be putting on the track as well. Because if you don't have your track in really good shape in a place like this, you're going to drag your train right off the rails. The track's just going to splay apart and bad crap's going to happen. And then, you know, we've had a derailment here before. I wasn't around for it, but they had to bring Holter down to get the train back on. And it was in the middle of a Christmas train, and you know, when you got 300-400 people on a train and you're stranded out in the middle of nowhere, that bad reviews for one, but then you lose a shitload of money for two. So these ties are anywhere between $80 and $150 a pop, depending upon where you get them. That's a lot cheaper than refunding a whole entire Christmas season. So you get a place like this where there ain't no tie. I mean, that's a duh. Hitting the joint there. That could be a bunch of different things. We have not ever tamped this. So I'd be more than willing to bet that if you were to watch the train go across this, you'd watch the rails do this, because it hasn't been tamped. It's all on soft road bed. So once we get these ties in, we're going to bring the regulator down here and pull all this gravel that's way out here back over, and then we'll bring the tamper down and squeeze it and line it and level it and be good for Christmas. We got a good tie here. We got a good tie here. Now, regulation states that for class 1, from the joint, it has to be supported out to a certain distance. if you don't have a good tie inside like a certain distance, that's like 24 inches or something like that, then you got an unsupported joint. And you don't want an unsupported joint when you're running jointed track. So, because what'll happen is they'll bend, and then you'll break the rail, break a joint bar, whatever. That kind of stuff leads to derailments, that kind of thing. So Corey has 2 here marked. He's got 1 marked there and 1 marked there. Now, if we were to pull both of these ties, this joint would be heavily supported because it got a brand new tie there and a brand new tie here. Class 1 says you only have to have 1 tie underneath your joint. But being as we are now at the top of the hill, right as the train is starting to come out, this is where the locomotive is pulling on it the hardest. We're just going to mark both of these ties. So that way it's very well supported. And this area here in the S-curves, we always want it to be our best piece of track because of the lateral forces that are involved. So I'll burn up ties down through the S-curves all day long to keep it in good shape before I go down into the tangent and burn ties down there. But if you don't have good support around your joints, you know, like look at this right here, this tie really not even doing anything because it's, you know, you can probably pull that spike out by hand. Yeah. So you're running the risk of bad juju. Very bad juju. Here in the joint plates, your tie plates, see how far away the rail is? That's because it's all being pulled over that way as the train goes either. So when the train goes around coming up, all the force is going that way. When the train comes down around this, oh, there's no pull, it's all shove. All your weight's coming out, shoving against it this way. So this is why we try not to run the F unit or the big diesels or anything like that very much, is because they are terribly hard on track. Especially the Alco, which has got a really rigid wheelbase. It'll push your curves out hard. When we were running the Polar Express last year, we had the F unit on the downhill end and the steam engine on the uphill end. It was great because the 70 could pull the whole train up through here no problem. But the nights that the 70 went down because the wedge fell out, we had to have the F unit doing a lot of shoving, and we actually shoved this entire curve over about 1/2 inch. So I stopped to think about the force that it takes to move a curve 1/2 inch. That's why we don't do a lot of shoving on this railroad. It's because of this chunk of the railroad right here. This is one of the things that holds us back from doing things like Day Out with Thomas and that kind of stuff, is because you'd have to shove the train up through here or shove the train down through here, and you don't want that. You don't want to be shoving on this junk, not this junk, but this type of railroad because of the lateral forces that are involved. You are asking for disaster.
So for those of you at home asking, there will be no Thomas the Train here.
Yeah.
At least not for a few years.
Well, the Thomas is a hard event for us to do because we don't have the perfect facility to do Thomas is the shop in Mineral. But then getting people there, because you know, I'll save the long explanation behind it. But trying to do the good Thomas event in Ilby, you're going to eat up all your parking trying to do it. And then when Mattel was out here and we were looking it over, I proposed how I would want to do Day Out with Thomas, and they said, oh, you can't do it that way. Which, like, well, yeah, you could do it that way. The kids don't care about what's pulling the train. What they care about is their time with Thomas, you know. I got told no. That's okay. Definitely a defective tie. you want to get your steps in, do track inspections.
I believe it.
Well, when Corey and I came out here the other day and marked all this with Bob on the speeder, he walked from the switch all the way to the trestle, which is like a couple miles. And then we got on, went across the trestle, and he walked from there almost all the way to LB, marking ties. Yeah, maybe you have to inspect the railroad once a week.
Of course.
You know, Bob is actually the perfect thing to inspect the railroad with, because you can just sit on it, look right down at the ties.
Exactly.
But it is kind of nice to have the air conditioning and the radio, you know?
Not a bad day at the office.
One of the parts of the railroad that looks like hammered shit. As you look at, you know, like, this is a good tie still. That is a good tie still. That tie is getting down there on life. That tie is, yeah, questionable. The one next to it, this one, it looks like it's solid on the top. It sounds solid. It looks like an old hand-hewed oak tie. I would be more than willing to bet that if you pulled it out and flipped it over, the bottom of it's gone. That tie right there could very well be from one of the first days of the railroad.
Wow.
So it's done its duty. It deserves retirement. So we are gonna send it off to the nursing home. But that's one of the other things you got to think about when you're going down through, especially this part of the railroad. When we did the crossing down in LB next to the bar, they were pulling ties out of that were hand-hewed, probably original to the railroad. That's 1904, 1905. I mean, they were all crooked, and
Wow.
you could tell that they were just branches off of an oak tree that they made flat on two sides and threw in the railroad. So, yeah.
A lot of history there.
There's a lot of history there. We were out marking last week, and down by LB we found a tie that had it used to be they'd put these little copper pins in them, and they were date pins. So it said what year they were put in, and we found one from 1939.
Wow.
So, yeah. Ties last a long time, but you got to be on top of it, you know. So for the longest time, we've always gone after looking for good deals on relay ties, which are, you know, they've been used once, hand-me-downs from the main lines. We did that this go around. Our friend Chad Gilliardi had a good deal on them. We were able to get them for about 30 bucks a tie, which is unheard of. But that's enough for us to shore the railroad up and get it into good shape. But moving forward, our best bet is putting brand new ties in the railroad. Good hardwood ties from like the South or something like that will last out our lifetimes. Because if I put a brand new tie in right here, if this one was put in say the 20s, brand new tie will be there when the next generation of rowdy comes through to market. You know, it's pass the railroad down in good shape, not pass it down in bad shape. So I was saying earlier, we spend a lot of money. We spend more money on the railroad a year than we do on the steam locomotives. Because without a railroad, you ain't got nowhere to run the steam locomotives. And the last thing we want is for the FRA to show up and lose their hair because the railroad looks like crap. And they did a couple weeks ago, but they went and looked at the bad part of the railroad going towards New Reliance, not this. So this tie project's gonna make them feel better. What is it? Yeah, we're on a 5-train day. If we were to be running all 5 trains this direction, or hell, even last year we were running 4 trains a day up here this time of year, it was 54 miles a day on 6 miles of track. Stop, think about that. That's a lot of traffic that this piece of track sees in a weekend, or even an operating week. You know, most short lines don't see that kind of traffic. They see traffic. Train runs across it one time a day and then comes back, but they don't have a train running back and forth across their railroad every, what is that, 30 to 40 minutes. And that's what this track puts up with, you know. So it has to be in good shape. Otherwise, I mean, that heavy ass parlor car going across it, that's enough to tear the railroad up right there. I mean, the 70 weighs 250,000 pounds altogether. Its saving grace is it's a centipede. It's got a lot of wheels down underneath it. It weighs as much as the F unit. The F unit's only got 4 axles. So that's a lot of, on, you know, this rail is, you know, this stuff's 90. Yeah, most of the rest of it's 85. So you don't have enough ties down underneath that lighter rail, you start snapping shit. It ain't good. It ain't good at all. Back to say the railroad needs to be tamped. That's why that's considered a low tie. It's also a bad tie. See how the end of it over there, I'm wiggling it and one part's moving and the other part's not. That's broken. But because this tie is right here holding that joint up, you got this over here holding the joint up, yeah, you can get away with not having to mark that tie. But again, where are we at? We're at the bottom of the S curve. We're actually in the middle of what is the S curves, because there's that curve right there, which is about a 15 to 18 degree curve. And it comes out the straightaway, and then you go up to 3% around there. So we're just gonna say no boo-boos. So when we get back up to where we finished marking, we'll start working our way back down this way. So this is how I always do it, is especially when the railroad. So I mean, I know there's gonna be a guy out there, oh my God, he's walking in the gauge. The railroad's out of service, it's posted out of service, there's no one out here. There's a derail down that way that's up, that keeps me protected. And there's a derail back up that way, what you saw us go through, up. So it keeps me protected. There's no one allowed to be out here right now. Has got their paperwork behind me when they come down in. And we've had our safety meeting, we know where everybody's at. So being that, I will walk all over this freaking railroad looking at shit. But so what I usually do, like we parked the Yukon back that way, probably close to a half mile, is I'll walk up one side in the middle, get back to where I quit marking, and I start coming down the other side and just kind of wander back and forth and really look it over, because then I've looked at it twice. And I'm kind of noting what I see going up this way. And then as I come back the other direction, I really kind of make a sound opinion on what I want to do. And then really start marking stuff out. So, you know, I'm not really paying much attention to the joint bars, because one of the things the FRA guy said was that we have loose joints all over the place. So that's what these are. And so you kick them, or you hit them with a hammer, see if the bolts are loose. That one's good and tight. For class 1, you only need to have 2 tight bolts. Like this one here tight and that one there tight, that's class 1. This one here tight, that one there tight, that's class 1. Now this one and this one are loose, you got to tighten those back up. Not allowed. Bad juju. Comes apart, rail goes up, rail goes outways. So when you make a curve, you're actually bending the rail around the curve. So if these joint bars come loose, then it has the potential for it to go boing, and that's no good. You don't want that. So, but that's what we're doing. But when I get back down into here, this is from about where that gauge rod is to about where that good tie is. We call this a nest. This is just a lot of bad ties all in a row. And this is not good stuff. You got to break this stuff up. So when we get back down this direction, what I'll do is I'll really start thinking over, okay, what ties in this nest do I want to get rid of to where it meets at least class 1. And if I can do it without burning up a whole heck of a lot of ties, then I'll burn up enough ties to make it class 2 to get ahead of it, you know. This isn't one of them situations where you just walk down through here and count out 4 ties. Oh, I'm standing on a good one. Oh, I'm standing on a good one. No, you got to come down through and really look it over and say, okay, this is all kind of bad crap. And if the FRA guy were to come in and look at this, they go, where are the good ties? You ain't got none. You need to put some in here. So we'll return to this and you know, break this nest up. And there's nests like this all down the railroad. You know, where you got 5 to 10 ties all bad in a row that you got to break up and start putting some good stuff in to get ahead of it. So, because this is a tangent, and considered a tangent, you can get away with dang near murder. Brian Wise came through in 2018, 2019 and completely rebuilt these curves to class 2, almost class 3. So they got some good wood in them, but shit don't last forever. So time to put some new stuff in it. Been wiggling on the ground, you can see it right there. That's what we were just saying, you know, you can hear the ties are loose underneath the rails. And you see this little gap. That means it's been pumping up and down. So we'll put this on the list of an area to regulate and tamp. And by regulate, the machine reaches way out there, grabs all that rock, pulls it back up into here. Then it turns into what we call tamper food at that point. And then we'll bring the tamper through and it'll shove the rock back down underneath the ties and firm the railroad back up. And then you bring the regular back across it and groom it. It makes it look pretty. You make a real pretty railroad really quick with a regulator and a tamper, not even put one tie in it, you know. We got a good tie there, and it gets pretty sparse as far as good ties back to there. So there's the joint. Like I said, most of these are 35, 36 foot long chunks of rail. So you're supposed to have 5 good ones in 35 feet. I'll look back at that joint back there and say, okay, if we got a good one under the joint, so there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, 4, 5, 6. So technically, you got your 5 at 39 feet, right? But you're starting into the curve, a lot of lateral force. And we know we got the nest down there, so we will take the worst of these two. That gives us 6 in that 39 feet. There's 7 in that 39 feet. There's a good one here. Bad one, good one, good one, bad one, bad one, good one. Corey didn't mark any of these 2 up, but I'm going to say take this one because that gives us that 8 in 39 feet, and that'll keep this chunk of the railroad at class 2. So, which is what we're trying to get to is, you know, will we ever go around these curves at 30 miles an hour? Hell no! But we got good wood in them. For the day when you got diesels and all that other kind of crap coming down them. We're coming into the nest. And if you look at the nest, it sits at a joint, right? So I'm about halfway down this rail. So about halfway down the next rail, we're going to be about 39 feet. If I sit back and look at this and go 1, and that 39 feet, I only got 1 good tie. That's not class 1. That's not even exempted track. So does that bring the whole railroad down? Not necessarily, but we're gonna make it better. So we'll take this one. Now we say that's a good one. 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5. So if we wanna be building it up, if we take this one, we'll be in class 2 area. Then we got 1, that's actually still a good tie. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So somewhere in these 5 ties, I need to put 1. You got a joint. The tie is underneath the joint. This one seems okay. It looks like crap, so we'll put this one right here, which will save the life of this one. But again, if you think back, okay, this one here, because it looks oak, was put in almost 100 years ago. I can almost guarantee you that the bottom of it looks like shit. So now we're in the nest. Now we got a good one there. 2, 3, 4, 5. Take this one here. That's 3 back from that, which would be class 2. And then we take this one here. That's good class 2. Especially since you're supporting the joint with 2 brand new ties. So you can't just walk along and count every 4th or 5th tie and say, oh, let's put a dot on that one, because you got to go down a little ways, turn around, and because I mean, what if your FRA guy, or what if your other track inspector or something like that starts at a different point that you did? You know, they're going to be walking along going, oh, okay, well, I can see where they put some wood in, but from where I started, it's not every 5th tie or whatever. You know, you can't just go through. This is one of the benefits that I got to work with Brian Wise, is he didn't subscribe really to that, just go along and put in every 5th tie. He really sat down and looked at a chunk of railroad and said, okay, let's look at it from both directions and make sure that we're covered hardcore in that area. So, and that breaks up that nest pretty dang good. You get some good support underneath the joint, and it breaks that nest up, so when we come through and tamp it, the railroad is going to be pretty dang sturdy. If the ties are surrounded by good ballast and drain rock, then the water's getting away from them. In an area like this, you don't have good ballast, the ground's just going to hold moisture up against your ties. It's one of the reasons why we're wanting to log the railroad too, because look at where the sun's at. You know, we're sitting here behind this tree, this is staying damp, whereas right down there where the sun's at is nice and dry. So yes, it looks pretty and it's pretty for us to go through, but on the other side of that, it's also costing us serious money when the railroad doesn't get dried out during the day. So if we actually have good days where the railroad can get dried out, our ties are going to last a little bit longer. Our road bed's going to be better. Can't get it dried out, ties go to shit quick. I mean, water is what breaks everything on this planet down. Water's an acid. Stop, think about it. So water breaks everything down. That's why things decompose up here so dang quick. So you can't get the moisture away from your ties are going to rot. 248 is basically a bridge. So
Yeah. And it's all in pretty good shape too, so.
yeah, so we're not going to burn the whole crap load ties up
No.
down through there. I was up to 264 for this, down to milepost 50, and then from 50 to 49 was 359, something like that. 354.
That sounds about right.
So.
Come on, man.
And then, of course, it snaps when you take it apart.
Yeah.
Because it's already bent.
Well, fun.
It's been one thing after another today.
That's usually the way it goes.
Yeah.
We got too much on the plate.
Yay, trains! Yay!
That boy need a spray down right there.
Nate's had a little too much fun.
Ah, damn, he's having a lot of fun today.
Let me up. So, 92 day. Go ahead, Nate. You work. Mush boy. So, 92 day inspection. This is our third 31 day in a row, so you have to do a little bit more than just a 31 day. We already pulled the gauges off. We had to dead weight test them. Pulled all the brake valves off, serviced them. Then you do the regular boiler wash, and then if there's any broken stables, you have to replace all of them. So we had one. So we thought we had more than one, and it was just one really bad one. So just waiting on Chris to make me a stable, put the washout plugs back in, and do a hydro.
Could play tic-tac-toe on the back there.